She lies for a living, he lies to survive. The morning was too tidy for the truth. Sunlight braided through the kitchen blinds, turning steam into slow gold. Kim Jae-hyun white shirt, sleeves precisely rolled, tie placed on the chair like a rule stood with a clipboard he did not need. He looked like a man interviewing fate, and fate had arrived 5 minutes early carrying a small tote and a bigger secret. Park Soo-min smiled the way professionals do, warm enough for trust, cool enough to work. Her beige cardigan softened the crisp black top beneath. Her hair was the kind that made hurried look intentional. "I can start today," she said. "If we like each other." "Children decide," Jae-hyun answered, and then blinked because he heard himself sound human. "We decide." From the hallway, Hana padded in with the solemn authority of small people. She studied Soo-min, considered, then climbed onto a dining chair and pressed a cat sticker onto Soo-min's ear. "Now you're ours," she said. Soo-min laughed, hand hovering not to peel the sticker, but to keep from touching the real thing beneath it, the small earpiece she had forgotten to mute. A click, a breath, the faintest thread of a voice. "Status?" She turned her head, letting the sticker swallow the device like a joke that saved a life. "Test one?" she asked brightly. Jae-hyun consulted a list that did not include tests, and said, "Cooking." They assembled kimbap like a treaty. Hana guarded the sesame oil. Soo-min rolled fast, clean. The knife at 90 degrees efficient enough to be suspicious, casual enough not to be. When Hana asked for a dragon roll, Soo-min shaped rice into something that almost roared and certainly delighted. The refrigerator hummed like approval. For a second, as Hana clapped, the spoon beside the stove lifted a fraction of an inch and set itself down again. Jae-hyun placed a hand over the spoon as if it were misbehaving. "Draft," he said. "Old windows. Next test, stories." Soo-min read aloud, low and steady, folding her voice around the edges of words until even the toaster listened. Hana leaned into the sound and fell asleep with a crayon still in her fist, a galaxy of green dots on the paper like a map to somewhere better. While Hana dreamed, Jae-hyun replaced a fuse in the breaker panel with the caution of a surgeon and the incompetence of a poet. The lights flickered, then held. "You passed," he said. "I didn't take the test," she replied. "You were in the room while it happened. That's how most tests work." They agreed to call it a trial day. The clock agreed to move quickly. Afternoon made the city gentler. Hana insisted on the long route to the minimarket because the long route included a dog. They paused to pet the dog, which forgave them for not being a cat. A drizzle retuned the world from major to minor. The minimarket window held a moving painting. Umbrellas folding. Hands warming around paper cups. The news speaking in headlines nobody had asked for. 2 men took an interest that wasn't about groceries. They tracked the trio by the footprints they left in the thin film of rain. Soo-min noticed the way the men's shoulders spoke to each other without mouths. She shifted, casual as a breeze, placing herself between Hana and the angle where trouble arrives. Jae-hyun pretended not to notice anything at all. He pointed at the bottled milk like it mattered. "Do we prefer 2% or possibilities?" he asked, which made Hana giggle because milk should not have philosophy. One man reached for his phone. In the reflection of the glass, Soo-min watched the movement arrive before it happened. She stepped out of frame for 3 heartbeats. The sound of something soft, meeting something hard breathed once behind the aisle. When she stepped back into the reflection, her cardigan had a new crease, and the man was suddenly very interested in the floor tiles. The second man discovered an urgent need to be elsewhere. Jae-hyun, eyes on the window, saw only the afterimage of a fight that no one else had witnessed. He carried a carton of milk like a peace flag and said nothing at all. They walked home the way people do after an almost. Hana hopped to avoid puddles and failed on purpose. She asked if cats liked rain. Soo-min declared that brave cats did. Hana declared herself brave, and then asked if bravery meant sleeping with the light on. "Sometimes," Soo-min said, "just until the story changes." Night made the apartment taller. The city wore its jewelry, string lights, window squares, the occasional siren pearl. Something touched the hallway air, a weightless pressure like the pause before a note. Soo-min put her palm up. Wait. She walked to the door quietly, set the child safety chain across the latch with a soft clink, and tilted her head toward the frosted glass that turned shadows into gossip. A shape moved on the other side and then didn't. The hallway coughed. Footsteps reconsidered themselves. Behind her, Hana stepped on her own plush cat and made an offended sound. He was sleeping. Hana whispered, picking up the toy and patting it as if apologies carried through fabric. Soo-min mouthed sorry to the plush, and then, to the door, nothing at all. The chain held. Silence decided to be on their side. Jae-hyun stood where he could see both of them and be seen by neither. In the glass of a picture frame, his outline flickered that familiar static around his hands, the faint, unreliable halo that came when he was tired or trying too hard not to be. He hid his hands in his pockets and walked as if he could outpace whatever lived in his bones. After Hana's bath, the cat sticker still clung to Soo-min's ear, crooked now, glossy in the bathroom light. Hana insisted on leaving it there. For luck, she said. They negotiated bedtime like diplomats. Ended with a story about a brave cat that hated the rain and loved umbrellas, and left the door open 2 inches so dreams could come and go without bumping their heads. On the balcony, the city exhaled through its 1,000 lungs. Soo-min's phone lit her palm, bright as a lighthouse, then dimmer as if embarrassed by the message it carried. Bring the child. Tonight, she read it twice, as if the second time might translate it into mercy. The app added nothing human, just a timestamp and a little delivered checkmark that looked like a smirk. She looked down and saw, 2 blocks away, a black van parked beneath a dead streetlight. The windshield wipers moved once, though there was no rain at that moment, and the van settled back into stillness like a held breath. Behind her, the sliding door whispered. Jae-hyun stepped onto the balcony and handed her a mug that steamed like patience. He didn't ask what the message said. She didn't volunteer. The kind of truth they shared tonight required both of them not to say anything first. Do you cook breakfast or should I? He asked, and the question landed like a hand on a shoulder. I'll try, she said. You keep the spoon from flying. He almost smiled. Draft, he said again. Old windows, she agreed. Hana's voice drifted from the bedroom, sleepy and absolute. Leave the door open. Soo-min and Jae-hyun checked the opening together, a ritual they had not earned and already needed. In the parking lot far below, the black van watched its breath fog in the dark. The cat sticker on Soo-min's ear caught a line of city light and glowed like a joke that wasn't a joke anymore. She typed one small sentence she would regret, and also not tonight. Somewhere in the concrete, a camera blinked. Somewhere in the wire, an operator sat up. Somewhere in the space between 2 people who preferred not to ask for help, something like an agreement formed fragile, unspoken, and more durable than either of them would admit. Inside, the kettle clicked itself off 1 second before it boiled dry. Jae-hyun didn't look at it. He placed the mug in Soo-min's hand and said, We'll keep the light on. For bravery? She asked. For when bravery needs company, he said. The hallway outside decided to be quiet. The night decided to wait. The van decided nothing at all. Part 1 ended the way most beginnings do, with a chain set, a message sent, and the soft certainty that tomorrow would ask the same question, louder. They woke into a morning that pretended nothing had happened. The rain took a day off. Sunlight rehearsed confidence on the floorboards. Kim Jae-hyun measured coffee like a man trying to domesticate time. Park Soo-min tied her hair up the way people do before carrying something heavy that can't be seen. House rule review, she said, tapping the touchscreen by the door. New alarm code. Already perfect, he said too fast. 0000 is not a code. It's a lullaby for thieves. It's the company's founding date. He failed to look proud about it. Hana wandered in wearing mismatched socks and jurisdiction over joy. Cat sticker is still lucky, she announced, patting Soo-min's ear where the edges curled, stubborn and shiny. The sticker made the tiny earpiece look like part of a game. Maybe that was what safety sometimes had to be. New code, Soo-min repeated, gentler, handing the panel to Jae-hyun. He entered a run of numbers long enough to feel grown-up. Beep. Approved. Hana applauded like something magical had happened, which in a way it had. On the way down to school, the elevator blinked its floor numbers like a heartbeat. At the lobby, they cut toward the back stairwell because habits are the grammar of survival. A flashlight beam slid across the metal railings one floor above them and stopped, a pale finger that didn't belong to daylight. Soo-min raised her hand, palm out, index finger to lips, quiet. The soft scuff of boots paused overhead. She pulled Hana close with the same grace she used for knives, nothing sharp, all decision. They waited, bodies tuned to the world's oldest instrument. Footsteps. A door sighed open on another landing, and the beam moved on. Bored or patient, hard to tell. Hana exhaled. Jae-hyun didn't. When the threat of danger loosened, they stepped into the kind of morning that pretends to be ordinary until someone names it. On the schoolyard, Hana sprinted toward a friend, then doubled back to hug them both with the ferocity of a small person who knows the weather better than the forecast. "You have to laugh today," she told them. "It confuses the sky." At home, the rooms felt like they were listening. The spoon behaved. The kettle minded. "We train." Soo-min said, no longer asking. "What does that mean?" he asked, which was honest and late. "Mean we rehearse normal and prepare for war." She tore a page from a notepad, folded it into a paper plane, and put it in Hana's hand when she returned that afternoon. "Throw," she told the girl. As if the room is a field with wind at your back, Hana threw like a person who trusted paper. The plane sailed perfectly toward the piano and should have lost a wing against the corner, but the air thickened, a soft, glimmering curve. The plane drifted, slowed, and set itself down on the lid like a bird that had chosen not to collide. A translucent bubble flickered around the instrument and was gone. Hana's eyes went round. "Do it again," she whispered to the room. Jae-hyun stared at his hands, traitors that sometimes remembered who they used to be. "It doesn't always listen," he said. "It listens to intent," Soo-min answered. "Intent and practice." They practiced little things. A glass that almost fell and didn't. A stack of books that started to tilt and changed its mind. The bubble came and went, a polite ghost of protection. Between attempts, they made a fort from blankets because Hana decreed that training without architecture was boring, and boredom is the first enemy of courage. In the half-light under the blankets, their faces were close enough to learn each other's breath. It was ridiculous and sacred. When Hana whispered, "Boo," they all flinched and laughed, which is how armies become families. By evening, errands wanted doing. They walked to the underground parking because rice and courage both cook better when you begin. The air carried the peppery smell of rain left over in concrete. Near their space, two men leaned against a car like punctuation, trying to decide between a comma and a period. "We don't need trouble," Jae-hyun said under his breath. "We never do," Soo-min said, which was not the same as believing they wouldn't get any. The nearest man peeled himself off the car with the posture of someone who thought people were doors. He drifted into their path, the kind of casual that has receipts. Hana squeezed Soo-min's hand, then straightened her shoulders because brave cats do. "Sorry," the man said without apology. "Borrowing this lane." Soo-min stepped forward, as if making space. In the half-second before he could set his second foot, she tilted his wrist, just so, touched his elbow, and let gravity file a report. He found the ground without ceremony. His friend decided to discover nicotine far away. Jae-hyun saw the reflection of the whole thing in a polished hubcap. A clean blur. A humane ending. He looked at Soo-min like people look at storms that don't take the roof. She looked back like a woman who understood the weather. "Groceries," she said. "Groceries," he echoed. And they did the ridiculous thing of actually buying eggs after an ambush because eggs and normalcy share a shelf. At home, they cooked an omelet that fought them and won. The smoke detector had opinions. Hana opened the window with ceremony and held a plastic fan shaped like a cat to wave the smoke out. "Our house breathes too," she said, which solved comedy for the day. The phone on the counter pulsed once, cold light on warm wood. A message from the same unnamed hand. "Deliver. Confirm ETA." No punctuation. People who own your fear don't need punctuation. Soo-min stared at the screen long enough for the future to try a different door. Then she said, "No, you can't answer no to a machine," Jae-hyun said. "You'd be surprised." The reply she typed wasn't elegant. Request denied. She set the phone face down like a lid. He could have asked 1,000 questions and might later. Right now, he handed her a dish towel like it was a flag. They went to work on the kitchen, building order because order is an invitation to stay alive. They sorted Hana's toys into small armies, cats, cars, blocks while arguing gently about whether courage is a thing you light or a thing you open. Both, Hana decided, from the floor, building a city out of criticism. When the last block had opinions about where it belonged, Hana pressed her cheek to her plush cat's head and frowned. "He has a headache," she said. She squeezed the ear and felt something that didn't belong in softness. He swallowed a rock. Well going. Soo-min took the toy and palmed the tiny seam along the ear, fingers remembering 100 disguises. She teased the stitch apart with a butter knife, slow, so courage didn't get spooked. Inside, where Fluff should have been stubborn about staying, a rice grain black capsule winked. She tipped it onto the plate. It rolled with purpose, a microphone eye and a pin LED so faint it felt like a lie. Hana's mouth formed a small O. "He ate a spy," she whispered, delighted and betrayed. Soo-min covered the capsule with a glass like it might sprout legs if humored. "This is not from today," she said. "They planned us before we began." "The van," Jae-hyun said, "last night, and likely more than one." She looked up at the ceiling corner where rooms in old buildings keep secrets. "Smile," she said softly, tipping her face to the nowhere eye. She smiled, then wiped a tear that wasn't there, and kissed the glass as if to bless it. The LED died, which either meant mercy or new batteries. Jae-hyun raised his hand toward the hallway camera disguised as a motion sensor. The air around his fingers shivered with static, a hummingbird of light. The asterisk call fixture flicked off, then on, then paused in a 30-second hold that felt like God granting an extension. "What did you just—" she began. "Time," he said. "Borrowed." They moved with the economy of people who had both rehearsed and never wanted to use the rehearsal. The go-bag, because there is always a go-bag after the first lie, sat obedient under the coat rack. Hana put her sketchbook in it, which was either tactical or sacred. With children, those are not opposites. The window over the sink reflected the city's early evening. In the reflection, a black van had moved half a block closer. The windshield wipers hesitated, then swiped once, the way a tongue tests a chipped tooth. "Option 1, Soo-min said. "We run." "Option 2, we choose a line and hold it." "Option 3, he said, surprising both of them. "We run to the line we choose and hold it there." She almost smiled. "Pretend normal. Prepare for war." "Breakfast first," he said. "It's dinner." "Practice," he said, which was ridiculous and briefly necessary. The 30 seconds ended with a polite blink. Somewhere beyond their door, metal breathed a hinge settling, a latch remembering its job. A low knock pretended to be polite. Hana climbed into Soo-min's arms without discussion and tucked her face into the cat sticker like it was a shield. Jae-hyun stood with his hands open and his shoulders ready. The peephole darkened for a fraction, a shadow blocking even the idea of seeing. The hallway went quiet in the way that makes quiet loud. The chain on the door thrummed once, a plucked string waiting to resolve. On the stove, the second hand of the cheap wall clock stuttered, tried to move, and stopped caught inside a bubble no one had asked for but both of them needed. Soo-min breathed in like a diver does, a promise to the underwater part of the world. "On 3, she said softly. Hana whispered, "Brave cats." "1, Jae-hyun said. The van's engine outside turned over like a throat clearing. 2, Soo-min said. Something slid into the door jamb with the patience of someone who had practiced. They didn't say 3. They didn't have to. The line they had chosen drew itself, invisible and bright, right where the chain held. The chain surrendered with a small, shocked sound. Metal whispered across metal. The door stuttered open 2 inches, and the apartment inhaled a stranger. Kim Jae-hyun stepped between the gap and the people he loved without looking brave about it. Park Soo-min shifted her weight like a sentence, choosing the right verb. Hana tucked her face against the cat sticker and waited like a little lighthouse. A red laser dot crawled up the framed family photo, searching for a heart that had not posed for it. It found Jae-hyun's chest. He didn't flinch, he did something smaller. He exhaled, slow, as if teaching the air how to behave. The dot trembled. The door jammed at 2 inches like a throat that refused the wrong word. "Leave," Soo-min said to the opening, voice low enough to be mistaken for kindness. The hallway answered with boots. The door burst another inch. A gloved hand came through first, obedient to training and utterly unaware of the woman who had been building refusals out of muscle memory since before breakfast. Soo-min caught the wrist, rotated a bone, nudged an elbow, and let the man introduce himself to the floor in a language his body understood. He didn't sleep exactly. He just stopped arguing. The second intruder filled the doorway like a decision. Jae-hyun raised his hands, not surrender, not threat, just the posture of a man measuring the weight of a room. The air around his fingers quivered, a small earth tremor contained inside the weather of his skin. The door hit that trembling pause and failed to remember how to proceed. The chain held. "Back," Soo-min told him. Not because she doubted him, but because the next part would be loud. 2 steps. They gave the hallway those 2 steps and nothing else. The apartment, insulted by strangers, went very still like a stage right before the cue. Then the cue. A third shadow flanked the door. Someone yelled something tactical that sounded like a grocery list spoken by rain. Pressure hit the wood. The frame groaned. The peephole went black a second time. The chain sang once. "Window," Soo-min said, already moving. Before they could, the window exploded, then changed its mind. Glass leapt, alarmed at its own courage, and froze mid-flight in a glitter of second thoughts. Jae-hyun stood with his palms open, face caught between fear and recognition. A translucent curve bloomed around them, a soft planet's atmosphere holding back a small universe of knives. Each shard hovered, edge lit by lamplight, obedient to a rule only he could write. "It listens to you," Soo-min said, not looking away from the shards. "It listens to us," he corrected, surprising himself. "When we agree." Hana peeked up into a snow globe that had decided to be kind. "Can we keep it?" she whispered. "For 30 seconds, Jae-hyun said, hearing the clock he couldn't see. They moved inside that bubble, like divers who had picked their direction. Soo-min dragged the entry console in front of the door to buy a heartbeat, slid the fallen intruder's comm piece across the floor with her foot, and shouldered the go bag. Hana tucked her sketchbook into its mouth like a promise. Jae-hyun kept his hands up and the curve intact, sweat beading at the line of his hair like rain debating work. The shards clicked softly against the invisible boundary as the bubble shrank to the size of the hallway. At the edge, Soo-min lifted a finger, counted silently 3, 2, 1, and Jae-hyun let the curve exhale. Glass finished what it had started by gently failing to. The floor shivered, then held. They ran the way families do when they choose each other. Down the hall, past pictures that had not yet learned their names, toward the stairwell where echoes make friends with footsteps. Soo-min took point, body low, a hand trailing the rail. Jae-hyun followed with Hana tucked against him, her ear pressed to the metronome of his heart. On the landing, a flashlight sliced the dark like a question. "Quiet." Soo-min signaled with 2 fingers and a look that rewrote adrenaline into math. The beam slid past, bored again, or patient again, still hard to tell. A boot rounded the corner. Soo-min stepped into it with timing that felt like music and took the leg away from the man it belonged to. He went down a few steps in a way that would make him furious later and grateful in a very private way. "Is this usual?" Jae-hyun whispered, breath shaping itself into the commas he needed. "Only the part with the omelet," she whispered back. "The what?" Later, they dropped 1 flight, turned through the concrete smell of other lives, came up against a heavy door that said service, in a font that had tried to live more interestingly and failed. Soo-min pressed an ear to the metal habit louder than noise, then pushed. The door gave them a corridor painted in the color buildings used to apologize for being practical. At the end, the back kitchen, steel tables, hanging pans, the holy mess of dinner. Staff froze in that way people do when strangers carry a child who isn't crying. Gas leak drill, Soo-min said. And nobody argued because the alarm in her voice made sense of everything. They crossed to the opposite door. It opened to rain. Outside, the world wore a wet veil. Neon braided into puddles, car lights rehearsed futures. The black van idled across the narrow street, windshield wipers alive with poor acting. Soo-min scanned for angles, roots, people. Jae-hyun counted breaths to keep the trembling from doing the counting for him. Hana lifted a hand from his shoulder like she might pat the night if it needed it. Left, Soo-min said. 2 blocks, right, cut through the laundromat. The laundromat hates me, Jae-hyun said. And she glanced at him like friendship had just discovered a new tool. They made it a block before the van decided to remember them. Tires said hello to water. Headlights decided to be the moon. Soo-min tucked them into the mouth of an alley that smelled like old soap and urgent rain. Palm up again for quiet. An employee from the kitchen, kind eyes, tired hands, appeared at the alley's far end and held up a trash bag like a passport. He nodded once. The international sign for, I didn't see you, but I saw enough. They slipped past gratitude without breaking it by speaking. Back in the apartment, because stories like this circle home to remember what home is, they found a kitchen that had missed them and a stove that still believed itself to be essential. Adrenaline drains fast and leaves jokes. That's why people laugh after almosts. Jae-hyun reached for eggs like a truce. Soo-min lifted the pan like a continuation. Hana climbed onto her stool, small fingers smoothing the page of her sketchbook, where she had drawn a stick-figure family with 3 smiles and 1 badly behaved cat. You cook, Soo-min said, distributing tasks like penance. I will debrief. You mean interrogate. Potato. Potato, she said without moving her mouth, the corners of her eyes doing what mouths usually do. He cracked eggs one-handed because dignity needs hobbies. The pan sizzled. The room tried very hard to be ordinary and almost got away with it. Soo-min stepped close to point at the salt and did not step back. Her shoulder grazed his forearm, and the act of breathing made a new sound. They turned toward each other like compasses, learning where north is only because the other has decided to be south. The apartment leaned in to hear. Somewhere on the ceiling, a tiny red LED watched smoke the way a bureaucrat watches forms. The omelet chose dramatic timing and burned. The smoke alarm cleared its throat and then committed to the bit. Hana sprang up with her cat-shaped plastic fan and waved air like a conductor rescuing a finale. Soo-min laughed, hand pressed to her lips, the top edge of the cat sticker lifting a millimeter from her ear. Jae-hyun reached over to kill the burner and found her hand there first. They stood like that, fingers nearly, not quite until the alarm's temper cooled. Almost, he said. We rehearse, she said. We keep failing at silence, he said, and she allowed that as a kind of victory. The phone on the counter buzzed once, the signature of a person who assumes they already have your attention. Video call. No ID. Which is its own ID. Soo-min set the pan down with ceremony and swiped. The screen filled with a face designed in committee, wrinkleless, genderless, eyes like fire alarms, someone who never had to say please. Agent Park, the mouth said without warmth. Deliver the child or we deliver your past. 30 minutes. You can't deliver what you don't understand, Soo-min replied. And you do not understand this family. That has never prevented delivery, the mouth said. The call ended itself, which is how power pretends to be polite. Jae-hyun stared at the black mirror in her palm and saw himself 1,000 times small. Your past? He asked. Filed under mistakes, she said. Alphabetical. He almost smiled. Mine lives in the same drawer. The apartment went quiet the way battlefields do before the sound starts. Rain thickened outside as if the sky had been eavesdropping and wanted to help with the soundtrack. Hana climbed down from her stool, walked to them, and put a hand on each of their wrists with the authority of a judge in a better world. We keep the light on, she said, using the words grown-ups had given her earlier, as if they had been training her for this. Yes, Soo-min said, voice breaking into a strength it liked. We keep the light on. Jae-hyun lifted his hand toward the hall fixture. The air around his fingers brightened, a small sunrise. The bulb paused at full, and the shadows withdrew like shy animals meeting a kinder version of night. Borrowed time, he said. Invested, she corrected. They packed in motions that felt like music. Documents, medicine, the sketchbook, an umbrella that lied about its size. Soo-min slipped the tiny bug they had captured earlier into her pocket like a coin for the river. Jae-hyun reached for the door and stopped himself, looking instead at the two faces in the glass of the kitchen window, one small with courage, one steady with decision, then at his own, which finally looked like it belonged in the same reflection. On three, Soo-min said again, because ritual saves more than it costs. They didn't say three. They moved, and the night, which had been waiting its turn, stepped forward to keep its promise. They moved, down the corridor that remembered their names badly, into the elevator that didn't, out through a lobby that preferred not to know stories. Rain waited for them like a ride. Park Soo-min carried Hana on her hip with the calm of a person who has already chosen which arm the future should hold. Kim Jae-hyun walked beside them with his hands loose at his sides, as if nothing inside those hands was capable of rewriting a minute. The agency? He asked. The agency, she confirmed. We don't run to it, we run through it. I have never run through a building, he said. You're about to prefer it. The city flickered past wet intersections, neon confessions, buses like poems that had learned schedules. They slid into a taxi because a taxi is a stage with a meter. The driver watched them in his rearview mirror and decided not to remember. Hana fell asleep against Soo-min's shoulder, mouth open in the shape of a small O, as if astonishment had finally taken a nap. The agency's tower wore the kind of glass that thinks it's better than weather. Turnstiles blinked patient green. Security cameras hummed their little, tireless hum. Inside, everything smelled like recycled air and money, pretending to be moral. A guard stood up. No visitors. Gas leak drill, Soo-min said, not even slowing. She tossed a badge onto the counter. It slid with the elegance of a decision and stopped with the sound of a bridge closing. The guard took in the sleeping child, the wet hair. The cardigan turned into armor. He almost saluted. Sir, he tried at Jae-hyun. My hands are full, Jae-hyun said, empty-handed, and raised one palm toward the far security dome in the ceiling. The air around his fingers brightened quietly, like a dawn that didn't want to be caught bragging. Cameras paused mid-pan. Turnstile lights froze on green, a mercy disguised as a malfunction. Borrowed time, he murmured. A sky bridge stitched the lobby to the servers, a vein of glass over rain-black streets. The roll-down shutter above it twitched like a nervous eyelid. We're early, Soo-min said. We're on time, Jae-hyun said, and sounded like someone who had finally met a clock he could respect. Past the bridge, the server floor exhaled cold. The hum went through bone. Rows of black cabinets watched them arrive. Soo-min set Hana on a rolling chair, tucked the cat sticker tighter on her ear, lucky charm, little lie, and opened a console like a confessional. The drive enclosure's green LED winked once, awake. What are we giving them? Jae-hyun asked. The recordings from our own apartment, the bug from the plush cat, the unauthorized orders that landed in my phone, the van's plate hop from last night, and a letter to anyone in government who still remembers why doors have hinges. It will be enough? It will be true, she said. Truth travels with slow shoes, but it gets there. The progress bar crawled. 31%. 58%. 81%. If this were a movie, Jae-hyun said, someone would say we've got company. If this were a movie, she said, we'd kiss to make the upload faster. Hana stirred. We can try, she mumbled, not opening her eyes. It was impossible to say whether she was joking or reading the room better than adults do. Lights shifted. In the glass of the cabinet, a face appeared, the committee face from the video call. Wrinkleless, expensive, eyes like warning labels. The building's PA borrowed the mouth and pushed the voice across ceiling tiles. Agent Park, it said, you're trespassing. I brought receipts, she said. You brought theft, the voice answered. and on some unseen panel someone chose lockdown like it was a flavor. The shutter above the sky bridge began to fall. Time, Soo-min said. Borrowed, Jae-hyun said, and lifted his hands. The shutter stuttered at a quarter down, metal complaining softly. The progress bar kissed 92%, then sulked. Somewhere in the guts of the building, sprinklers primed, systems considering how to say no with water. Can you hold one more thing? Soo-min asked him. 2, he said, and was astonished to find it true. The sprinklers coughed, then hung. Droplets purled in the air above them, a ceiling of suspended rain. Each round bead caught the server room light and gave it back sweeter. Hana woke fully and stared up into a sky that had changed its mind. It's like the bubble, she whispered. It is the bubble, Jae-hyun said, and his voice had pride in it for the first time since pride mattered. The progress bar leaped. 98%. 99%. Complete. Soo-min ejected the drive with a gentleness that looked like worship and slid a second, empty decoy into place where cameras could see it better. She tucked the real one into the crossbody at her ribs, over where people write poems about hearts. Now we run through, she said. The sprinkler rain fell all at once sheeting, and he made it curve around them, a clear tunnel through noise. They took the sky bridge inside a private weather system. Water roaring to either side, roll-down shutter stuck just high enough for Hope to fit. Security silhouettes appeared at the far end, searchlight cutting the mist like a jealous god. I can push them back for 3 seconds, Jae-hyun said. I can make 3 seconds work, Soo-min said. She went first, the tunnel of water splitting around her coat like a stage trick. He held the shutter up with a thought that felt like a lifting bar and a prayer. Hana ducked under, backpack bopping her shoulder like applause. The searchlight found them and then lost them, as if deciding to be polite. The PA voice tried to sound calm and sounded like a kettle about to misbehave. On the far landing, a security team made the human decision to slow down when faced with a child in pajamas and a woman who looked like both a mother and a blade. She can walk, Soo-min said, which was either true or talismanic, and they walked the kind of fast walk that makes running seem gauche. They broke into the stairwell where echoes still kept their appointments. 3 floors up, the roof access door sulked behind a bar. Jae-hyun looked at it the way men look at problems they've practiced for without admitting they were practicing. The bar thought about its job and resigned with a gentle click. Invested time, Soo-min said, and he almost smiled. The roof was an ocean. Rain wrote its small script on every surface. The city below turned every drop into a line of light. Hana's umbrella was the small, ridiculous kind with cats on it. The sort of umbrella that takes rain like a dare and loses charmingly. She popped it open anyway and handed it up toward the 2 adults, who ducked beneath it as if to humor Grace. We're exposed, Jae-hyun said. We're honest, Soo-min corrected. Those are often the same. We keep the light on, Hana said somberly, tilting the cat faces at the sky as if they might purr a force field. Across the roof, a service door banged open. 2 agents spilled out, wet already, their plans dampening by the step. Soo-min raised a hand not to fight, but to ask for a second. Look down, she told them. They did, because people still do what voices like that tell them. Water pooled at their boots and moved backward in a clean line, as if the roof had discovered reverse. Across the puddles, red reflections from a distant warning light drew a sentence. Leave. It wasn't magic. It was math with better manners. Records are out, Soo-min said. Every camera you own now serves the people who paid for them. You can chase us, and you can explain that to them, or you can go downstairs and practice your apologies. One of the agents had a daughter's name stitched inside his jacket. He chose the stairs. The rain eased to polite. The city took a deep breath. Soo-min turned under the ridiculous cat umbrella to face Jae-hyun properly. He looked like a man who had run through a building and found the room he was trying to keep. Hana stepped politely to a respectful 2 feet away and examined a very interesting drain, the way children do when they know the story is having a moment. I lied this morning, Soo-min said. I expected it, Jae-hyun said. I'd like to lie less. I'd like to hide less. Practice? She asked. Practice, he said. And then finally, simply they kissed. Not a movie-ending kiss or a war-ending kiss, but the kind people invent for themselves when the weather is patient and the city agrees to be witness. The umbrella failed at its job, and they didn't mind. Rain threaded their hair into something that looked like belonging. Hana clapped once without looking at them. "We can go home now," she announced, which is one of the oldest blessings in any language. They did not go home immediately. Soo-min walked back down into the building she had once served and placed her resignation on a desk that had forgotten to be brave. A man who had never said please tried to say it and choked on the unfamiliar shape. Oversight called. The first meeting of a new kind of accountability put itself on a calendar and dared to keep the appointment. Somewhere, a guard wrote a report that used the phrase, "and then the sprinkler rain held," and didn't get laughed out of the room. Days become weeks when you let them. The apartment learned to be safe on purpose. The cat sticker retired to the refrigerator door as a magnet holding up Hana's drawing. 3 figures under one umbrella, and a fourth, very small, labeled with looping drama, "Brave Cat." Passwords improved. The spoon settled down. The bubble came when asked and sometimes when not, a reflex like kindness. They kept the light on at night. Not because they were afraid of the dark, but because the dark had proved it could behave when supervised. On a Saturday that forgave the week for trying too hard, they waited at a crosswalk while the city rehearsed symmetry. Hana held both their hands, which is a superpower no agency can regulate. The signal turned green. They stepped into the bright. A phone buzzed in Soo-min's pocket, unknown number. Message short enough to be mistaken for humility. New case. Same van. She showed it to Jae-hyun without ceremony. He read it and smiled the way people smile when they've learned how to say no without explaining. "Delete?" she asked. "Archive," he said. "For the memoir." "What would we call it?" she asked. He looked up, where Rain had the good manners to wait till evening, and then down, where Hana swung their arms like bells. "Pretend normal. Prepare for love," he said. "Too honest for a title," Soo-min said, and laughed into the day. They crossed. The city did not erupt or punish. Somewhere far back in the files, the agency added a line to a training manual nobody read. When people choose family, adjust strategy. The world kept its arguments. The kettle managed not to boil dry. The umbrella learned their heights, and when the next storm came, as storms do, it found the windows already aware of themselves, the chain already set, and 3 people already keeping the light on, not because they feared the noise, but because light is the best way to see each other's faces.